All right, guys. So, welcome to another Scaling Brokerage podcast. Today, we have Alec Schartz with us, and we are going to be able to pick his brain, learn a little bit about how he started his successful team, how he's been able to grow, maybe some challenges too that he's came across and how he's overcame them. So, Alec, we're happy to have you here. And if you don't mind, could you tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself and what got you started to building the team?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Tristan. Really appreciate the opportunity. Um, I've been a licensed real estate agent for 28 years and a broker for roughly 25 of those, 24 of those, something like that. And I started my team right after I got my brokerage license, and it's grown from the first team. I was like about three of us, two agents plus me, and didn't really know what I was doing back then, to be very candid about it. And at the largest pre-COVID, I guess we were about a team of 9 or 8, and we're back down to 5 of us at this point. We run a team that specializes in helping folks with the transition from Center City, Philadelphia to the surrounding suburbs and vice versa, from the burbs back into the city. That's always been the focus of my business, and it's what all of the team members understand and work at, which is, I guess, a little unusual. I mean, typically you have a suburban agent and you have a city agent, and they don't want to talk to each other. And we're all of that for all of those people in that transition. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And what made you decide to take that angle for positioning yourselves as those agents?
I think that the impetus certainly came from my experience, where I started my business in the city, and when I moved to the suburbs myself, I got a perspective on what that transition was all about. At the time, it was definitely a business saving approach, where I needed to protect the business I'd already built in the city. I was good at that, and I understood those neighborhoods. And by the same time, I was starting a life in the suburbs and wanted to grow my business there. So it grew organically from the where I was to where I am. And I said, a lot of people make those same life choices that I was making. Sometimes it's about, I mean, in my case, it was, I guess, getting married, and I was going to have kids, and my kids were going to go to school in the suburbs. And I think that that's not an unusual pattern that a lot of people follow. Obviously, everybody follows their own direction in this world, but I saw it as sort of a life event that fed my real estate need, and I thought others would follow the same path.
Yeah, that's great. We always talk about this, and this is for recruiting agents, attracting buyers and sellers on this show, but you always got to kind of have that unique value proposition. So I'm glad you already shared that, because that's it's very important for for any agent to have, as well as the brokerage owners. So if you don't mind, if sharing a little bit more about the team side of things too. So you said you scaled the team to 9, and you're now at 5 agents, correct?
Correct.
What were some of the challenges that you've came across from building the team up to 9 agents? And then where are you at now, and where do you want to take it?
And I certainly think I've made my share of mistakes over the years. I will be candid about that. I used to be a lot more comfortable taking on people who were what we call a part-time agent, who had some other gig going on. And I always did it with the understanding and the hope that that agent would be in a process of making a transition to becoming a full-time agent. I mean, but I understood, people needed to have income. It's not easy in this business to sort of turn a key and show up and start making money. Even if you sell a house day one, you're going to wait maybe as little as 30 days to see any money from that, from a commission standpoint. And nobody sells a house day one, or very, very, very few people. So, there has to be some income to pay the bills. So I was always sort of the opinion, you got to be able to make that transition. At this point, I really do hire people who are ready to make a commitment full time. And so I phased out the people who were more part-time. And so, 4 plus me good full-time agents, I think in some ways is a stronger team than if there's an additional 4 that are part-time. As much as I like some volume, if they're each doing 2 or 3 deals a year, that's not much more volume anyway. So Yeah. And it takes time, right? And that's the other thing. Part-time agent is not engaged daily in the business, and the business changes quickly, and having your finger on the pulse is important.
Absolutely. So it looks like you decided to take on less agents on the team to kind of help with is it more of like the quality of the agents, making sure they're committed full time?
I mean, some of it was my choice, but some of it, it's a collaborative decision, right? Like you talk to the agent and see really where they want to go. And if they're really not committed to growing their business the way I do my business and others on the team do their business, it might not be a good fit, to be very honest, Tristan. And that's a hard conversation, but ultimately, it's a combined discussion. Somebody says, I really want to focus on something else. I feel I got this other stuff going on. And you say, well, maybe then you'd be better off not being a full-time agent, not being an agent, put your license into a referral company, something like that, where you can make some money, you can lower your costs. But if you're only going to do 2 or 3 or 4 deals a year, there's a lot of costs involved to do 4 deals a year in this business, and to do it right and to do it well. And so, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And, and if you put your license into a referral company, we can do the work for you. We can pay your referral, and that makes more sense than, trying to get you to come to a sales meeting and engage with, what's going on with, commission lawsuits, et cetera, and all of that. So, yeah.
Definitely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And so I have a question. So a lot of our listeners, they're looking to grow their brokerage or their team leaders that are looking to grow their team. Do you have any plans in the future to growing your team more than the 5 agents you have right now? Or
we do, and I am always recruiting. It's a slow recruiting process for me because I'm pretty picky. I'm not. I really am looking for people who share an understanding what a fiduciary responsibility of a client is first and foremost. There aren't a lot of people who quite understand that, and that's important to me. I've built my business based on that first and foremost. So that's part of it. Agents need to be committed to doing some prospecting, which not all agents like to do. My business model is certainly one where everybody on the team prospects in some manner or another every day of the week. And unfortunately, agents aren't necessarily comfortable doing that. And brokerages have a hard time motivating agents. They don't, I don't just want another name on my team. I want people who are going to engage in the behavior. So I'm pretty picky. And I've got people I've identified, and sometimes the process has taken a year or 2 to get somebody on board. And when the time is right, they come on board. And that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, that's great. And so if you don't mind expanding on that a little bit, what strategies have been successful to even get you have the agents you have at your current team? What strategies have you been using in order to get qualified agents? And then what are you currently doing?
Yeah, it starts from a place of, I think, like I like to say, I'm making friends, really is what I'm doing every day. And some of them will come not these 4, from transactions I've done with an agent, and I've identified them as somebody who really understands the business, who understands what negotiation really is, who understands how to use the forms, who understands all of that. So there's a knowledge base, and that's one way. I have taken a few like brand new rookies over the years, and some of them have made great agents until they got tired of doing it, and then they didn't. There's turnover, but so I've done that. But I'm always making friends. Like, I'm just out there talking, listening, hearing what people hope to get out of it. Very holistic approach to my team. Like, I really want to know what's going on in everyone's life. I really want to know, not like in a weird kind of way, but like if something's going on, I want to know. I want to be supportive of that. So if they need to take a break for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is, that they'll have the support to do what they need to do to make sure that when they come back a week or 2 weeks later, that they can do what they need to do. So it's important to me.
Yeah, that's great. I actually was talking on one of my more recent episodes. That was the main thing, is we're in the people business. We're not in the, it's not even like the transaction business and the tactical stuff. You have to build that relationship with people, and there's no way around that when it comes to it. So So curious, I know that you're doing it that way. Are you looking into any additional ways that you're to attract agents, or are you mainly kind of going off that method?
No, and I mean, I look at reports just like everybody else does, and I'm targeting, agents who've done anywhere from $2 to $5 million in business in the last 12 months, and then from there I'm looking at where the business is located, and what kind of business it is. It mostly buyer business and mostly seller business, and I'm targeting, and then I'm making calls, and or sending text messages because people respond sometimes different to those two approaches, and reaching out the same way I reach out when I'm building my buyer and seller pipeline. I am doing that to agents who I've never met before, and hopefully get them on the phone, hopefully and get them to a cup of coffee, hopefully we can start a conversation and see what they're looking for, see if there's a good fit, see if there are any points in their process in their career where they might consider joining a team, understanding what my team does, understanding that it's about, I don't buy leads to give them and have them chase buyer leads. That's not my approach. I mean, it's just not what I do. And so understanding that, certainly agents on my team benefit from buyers that are generated from the listings I take, but that's very different from, Zillow leads or some other online lead. And I don't believe in it. I think the leads are garbage. And so I stay away from those.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great tactic. Are you using the Market View broker? Is that the tool you're using there?
Honestly, I don't know the name of the software, but I'm a team at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox and Roach, and they have agent metrics that I can tap into and pull the data I need to pull so that I can recruit that way.
That's great. That's awesome. So so you said like text and email and stuff. Do you have any specific strategies you're doing with them, or in order to get them to meet for coffee, or what does that look like?
I love to hook it to a recent transaction. I mean, that's always it. If I can find a recent transaction which just settled, I like to start from there. Like, hey, I saw that you just closed 123 Main Street. Nice sale. Looks like you do the kind of business that my team is trying to do. If you'd ever like to have a cup of coffee, let me know. Like, I start from there. That's a tactic I like a lot. The closed business line, right? But sometimes it'll be very cold, which is like, in December I'll say, hey, it looks like you had a great year, right? Like, because in December I can see what they've done, what they've closed for a year, and it will be very simply December, campaign. Like, hey, you had a great year, or hey, looks like you didn't have a great year. Any interest in chatting about it? Is something going on in your life? Love to see if there's a good fit for you to do better next year. That kind of thing. So I'm timing it based on real estate activity. I'm not like saying, hey, it's St. Patrick's Day, you want to go out and get a drink and green beer or something like that. That's not my approach. I am not into that. Yeah.
That's great. Awesome. Okay. So right now you're doing that technique. I mean, what would you say, like right now, are you spending how many day or hours out of the week, or what does it look like?
5 hours a week on recruiting, about another business building phone calls for clients, about another 20 hours a week, 15 hours a week. So between the two, 20 to 25 hours a week recruiting one way or the other.
That's incredible. Actually, that brings us to a good point, because I want to ask this question for you. There's a lot of people, even if they are just getting started with their brokerage or their team, one of the biggest struggles is finding ways to, the time management side of things, to recruit, but also make sure you have the time to still feed the team or the brokerage, and also make sure the bills are paid too. So how did you start prioritizing that, and how did you manage to start consistently doing that on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I mean, it was a strategy I think I learned 20 years ago, maybe 23, 4 years ago. It really starts with time blocking, right? I use my calendar as a way to keep me in line. My calendar is my taskmaster. I set aside time for those activities every day. If something else comes up, I reschedule that activity, right? Like, I hear people say, oh, I ended up with a settlement on Wednesday morning. Oh, that's great. You do the settlement on Wednesday morning. Obviously, that's an important item to add to your schedule. But if you were supposed to spend 2 hours prospecting on Wednesday morning, you better move that 2 hours of prospecting somewhere else and treat it like an appointment not like a task that you can or may not do. It is something that needs to be done. So that's my number one strategy is time blocking it. And it's time blocked. Frankly, some of these appointments are, standing appointments that show up on my calendar every 4 months. And, and it's, call this specific person every 4 months when I'm doing something. And it's a repeating event. And so like I got years sometimes of calling people, and some of those people are mayors for business. Some of those people are mayors for recruiting. Some of those people are all of those things. Right. Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think, we always hear like everyone has the same 24 hours in the day, and then just making sure you put it on your calendar, prioritizing it. I don't think there's a way around that, is there?
If there's another way to do this successfully, nobody, I mean, I look, social media is great. Like social media is a pretty easy, somewhat fun way to deal with stuff, but it's a piece of a larger campaign. Is what I tell everybody, right? Like if you're not picking up the phone, chances are, and look, maybe I'm old. Maybe younger people don't want to respond to phone calls. So maybe I'm only going to be hitting up people who are, older or my age or not a lot younger than I am or something like that. But that's okay. It works for me, and at some point maybe it won't, but for now it keeps working.
Awesome. That's a great point, because when it comes to like the social media marketing, so recently, a broker had started, they advertised an event on social media, got 90 RSVPs, had 65 people in the room. They ended up recruiting like 11 agents from it, which is
Nice.
a great resource, but they still had to pick up the phone, so they still had to have that conversation, still had to meet with them and everything. So there's always that room, I feel like, for,
But that's a nice conversion, right? From, what did you say? How many people were at that event? 70? Did you say 70?
90 RSVPs, and then there were 65 agents there, and then 11 of them decided to move forward. But it was very niche.
That's a pretty good conversion rate, if you ask me. I don't know. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it always goes back to the phones. It's funny that you say that. Like no matter what, you can't avoid that. So, awesome. Well,
like 20 years ago, I closed a negotiation via text message for the very first time in my career. And I remember saying to my client, I said, we just negotiate. Not me and my client, but the other agent and I negotiated via text. And I said, that was really weird, I said to my client. And at this point, like, the number of things I do via text message is just incredible. But none of it takes the place of a good phone conversation. None of it.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that. And so let's talk about where your team's headed then. In this evolving market and everything, how do you plan to stay ahead of the curve, and how many agents are you looking to grow your team to in the next 12 months, would you say?
Yeah, in the next 12 months, if I could grow to about 8 instead of 5, that would feel really good to me. I mean, not that, I would grow bigger, but I want it to be 3 good agents that I add. That's sort of the target for the next 12 months. And last 12 months, the target was a 0. I wanted to just stay where I was, and I'm actually smaller. And so I'm not upset about that, but the goal was not to really grow, keep having conversations. Obviously, there's always room for a conversation. But yeah, in the next 12 months, 3 more would be about where I'd like to be.
Awesome. I love that. And so let's say, so now that I ask you that, so let's say you have the agents, the 8 agents, let's fast forward to 2, 3, even 5 years from now. And let's say you did hit those 3 agents. Where do you see yourself and your role within the company as a team leader?
Yeah, I give it a lot of thought, to be very candid, Christian. I mean, I'm not old, but I'm getting to a point where I am thinking about how I would, scale it to a point where I might not have to run around every day, every weekend, and do the kind of activities that I'm doing. Not that that's in a year or 2 years or 5 years, but maybe 10 years from now, I'd like to be in that place. And so I'd love to see it at a point where it's never going to be passive income, but where there's more passive income from the team. I'd love to see a couple agents on the team doing the kind of volume that I personally can and do and have done regularly, so that there's a business that can continue long after my name is no longer in the day-to-day.
Absolutely. And just out of curiosity too, do you have like, because I know you said the residual income stuff. Do you currently have like a mortgage title company, or are you doing any of those ancillary strategies, or you just stick into
No,
the
I
real?
mean, because I'm part of a bigger brokerage, that's not part of my strategy. No.
Okay.
I've
Gotcha.
got some other non brokerage related stuff that I'm passionate about, that may do that. Stuff to dealing with commission assistance for buyers who might not be able to pay those brokerage fees, as that model seems to be changing and evolving. Sort of a nonprofit structure for that is something I've been kicking around. I really care about fair housing, and so anything I can do to help address that in sort of, again, in sort of a nonprofit arm of my business, I really, really, really want to try to figure that out. And I'm making some small steps in those directions. It's evolving, is what I would say.
That's great. Awesome. Okay. And then another question too. So if you were to start over today, let's say everything left, well, like not from the real estate transaction side, but it was just you, all by yourself. What would you do if you had to start from scratch and build your team back up again? What would
The first thing I would do is I would have start with a branding strategy from day one. I didn't grow a branding strategy until about 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, somewhere 4 years ago. And that was a missed opportunity for me in a lot of ways. I recognize, I mean, 25 years without that going on. And now I just didn't understand, honestly. So that's the number one thing. And the number two thing, I think at this point, knowing what I know now, is that I really would be selective from the very beginning with who I added to the team, not just adding bodies for the sake of saying I have 5 agents, 7, 10 agents, 9 agents, whatever it is. Not that it was ever just adding bodies, but I mean, I never said no to anybody at the beginning. And at this point, I fired agents and I've said no to agents. I mean, like, it's not a good fit. And so, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, awesome. That's great advice. I've definitely heard stories of, if you could go back and not hire the people that are kind of holding a team down, especially with the team, you definitely probably want just more high performers, and you have to be usually a full-time agent, right? I mean, have you ever had a part-time person that's just crushing it, or do you notice a pattern?
I had somebody who found themselves needing to do something full time, but then went back to their primary job. And while they were doing this full time, they did crush it. I mean, like, I've said to that person, like, if they're ever ready to retire from that other job again, they are welcome back in a heartbeat. They really got it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the great thing. I'm assuming that's why you're always prospecting too, because that's one of the biggest things too that, can go wrong, is if you count on those 5 agents that you currently have, and then something like that does happen where they go from crushing it to a part-time agent.
And life happens, right? Life
Yep.
happens.
Life, most importantly. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, Alec. Well, this has been an incredibly helpful conversation. As far as growing your team and everything, I think anyone who's listening to this, and if they're just getting started with a team or maybe need to make some adjustments, definitely a great listen. And for anyone who wants to learn more about your team, or if you're open to giving your contact information to the audience, what's the best way for them to find you and reach you?
Yeah, on Instagram and Facebook, we're the A-Team Home Heroes. A-Team Home Heroes. We have a website, ateamhomeheroes.com. And I give out my cell number, so that's probably the best way for people to reach me, and that's 215-919-9786. Yeah.
Awesome, Alec. Well, thank you so much for hopping on. We really appreciate it. For this community, we want to continue to help more team leaders, more brokerage owners scale. Sometimes it feels like you're on a lonely island. So,
yeah, sometimes, I guess.
Yeah,
Can I sell that island to you, Tristan? I mean, I've got an island for you.
You do. Do you have an island?
I wish.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for hopping on, Alec.
Thanks, Tristan. Have a great afternoon. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, and so I'll cut it off after that. I know you said something about the event stuff. So the thing that you mentioned, high conversion. I have a mini course I can send over to you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll shoot that over to you too if you want to. I don't know if you're doing events or anything, but I know you said the conversion.
I've done events with like a partner lender. I've done that, and that's worked.
Yeah.
Interestingly, is what I would say, more of a networking event than a recruiting event. Yeah, but I mean, I'd love to read your course on recruiting events, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, I get how it works the same way it does for like you do an event for buyers, or an event for sellers, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it works a little. I mean, it's a little different. I feel like I don't know if was yours more like a career thing or was it like a topic heavy?
The one I did with the lender recently was.
Or is that for buyers and sellers?
With the lender, it was a networking thing, but for buyers and sellers, you like a first-time home buyer seminar kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Like I've done that, and in this market, that's a brutal event to do. It's just, buyers are struggling so much in this market. I mean, I'd much rather have a first-time buyer than a seller who has to buy right now. That's hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you sell as well, or are you only in the podcast business?
I do not. So I do this podcast but I have a business partner in another business where we help scale real estate teams and brokerages. That's why we're developing this community too, just to help other teams and brokerage owners who are looking to grow. So yeah, I don't personally sell real estate. Been a director of marketing at his brokerage and helped hire 360 agents in the past 4 years. So we kind of just show people those systems. But yeah.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Well, nice meeting you, Kristen.
Nice to meet you too. And then I have your email. So if you want to take a look at it, it's a free course. It shows you everything in there too.
I'll take a look. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Alec. Take care.
Nice conversation. Thanks, Kristen. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.